You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thank you for listening. Coming up, we'll recap last weekend's games and get you set for this week, including a key conference matchup between Cincinnati and Memphis. Frank Murtaugh of Memphis Magazine and the Memphis Flyer will join us to talk about that in just a few minutes. Speaking of Cincinnati, Desmond Ridder ran for 179 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also threw for 126 and a score to help number 9 Cincinnati beat number 16 SMU 42-13 on a Saturday night showdown of unbeaten teams. Bearcats head coach Luke Fickell.
Obviously, I couldn't tell you what the margin of victory was, to be honest with you. I know we won, but we faced a lot of adversity tonight, and that's what I think I'm most proud of our guys for is how they handled that adversity. Whether they're turnovers, whether that was penalties on the defensive side of the ball, just a lot of things that really kind of put us in some tougher situations to see how we would kind of react and respond to each other on the field and throughout the entire game. So more than anything, obviously a big win on the road against a really good football team. I'm most proud of how these guys have handled the last week, 2.5 weeks, as well as how they handled a lot of different adverse things that happened on the field tonight.
Clayton Tune threw for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns. Houston downed the midshipmen of Navy 37-21. Here's Cougs head coach Dana Holgerson.
I don't really look at it like that. We just take every week and we try to improve. Hadn't really talked about BYU since last Sunday because we needed to make a concerted effort to learn from that game and turn the page and move on. Our week of preparation was a lot better this week than it was last week, and I expect it to get even better next week. After having 3 games now, we've practiced what it needs to be like to get a game over with and learn from it and move on to the next one. It wasn't anything other than just trying to continue to improve and learn how to prepare better, and I think we did that this week.
Brady White threw 4 more touchdown passes, and Memphis' defense forced 4 turnovers. That allowed the Tigers to pull away for a 41-29 win against Temple. Tigers head coach Ryan Silverfield.
Come by. I told you guys this year it was certainly going to be that way. This is no different. A great Temple team, truly Temple tough. But proud of our guys' way to go out there and get a conference win. It starts really kudos to our defense going out and getting 4 turnovers. It makes all the difference in the world. I think that's part of it. I was proud of the way they played and stepped up. Rodney Owens with 2 big picks, almost had that third at the end. Wonderful job by him. Offensively, 3 turnovers by us, and we certainly can't do that. Like I told you guys, it's going to be hard for us to compete week in and week out with that. I think most of the game, if you guys can recall, midway through that third quarter, it came down to 7 plays. And in that 7-play deal, our defense got 2 turnovers and we had 2 scores. So that was kind of the turning point in the game. But we got to continue to do a better job. We got a lot to work on. But again, at the end of the day, I'm proud of our guys' efforts.
Deneric Prince rushed for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. Corey Taylor II added 67 yards rushing and 2 scores. Tulsa was victorious over South Florida by a 42-13 score. And Dylan Gabriel threw 5 touchdown passes, 3 to Marlon Williams, as the Knights' top-ranked offense rolled in a 51-34 victory over Tulane. So at the top of the conference, Cincinnati, Houston, and Tulsa all sit atop with a 3-way tie of 2-0 records. This week's games kick off on Friday, and on Friday night at 9 o'clock on ESPN2, it's East Carolina at Tulsa. East Carolina leads the all-time series 8-7, and Tulsa was victorious last year by a 49-24 score. Turning the page to Saturday, Temple at Tulane. That'll be noon on ESPN+. Temple leads the all-time series 4-1, winning last year's contest by a 29-21 score. UCF at Houston, 2 p.m. on ESPN+. UCF leads the all-time series 6-3, and were victorious in last year's Space game 44-29 at the Bounce House. The game in Houston, the Knights will wear their space unis from last week for a second week in a row, as Houston, of course, is a key city in the space program. Navy at SMU, that will kick off 7:30 Saturday night on ESPN2. The Midshipmen lead the all-time series 13-8, and they won last year's meeting by a 35-28 score. Coming up next, we look at our Spotlight Game of the Week as Cincinnati takes on Memphis. Frank Murtaugh of Memphis Magazine and the Memphis Flyer joins us to talk about that after a quick timeout on the AAC Report.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs.
And we'll talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week now as Memphis and Cincinnati battle in a key conference matchup. Joining us to talk about that now, the managing editor of Memphis Magazine, covers sports for the Memphis Flyer. Once again, we say hello to Frank Murtaugh. Frank, thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be with you, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and when we got on the phone together, you said the magic words, it finally feels like football season.
Yeah, it's been so strange, particularly here in Memphis, Jeff. You know, we had the COVID outbreak after the season opener on Labor Day weekend, and then the Tigers played SMU, then had a bye week, and, you know, it was only last weekend that they finally played back-to-back football games. So, there's a chill finally in the Mid-South weather, and, you know, Cincinnati on the schedule. Yeah, to say the least, football season has arrived, and it's exciting. It's exciting right now.
Yes, and of course, last year you guys bested the Bearcats twice on the way to the AAC Championship and the New Year's Six Bowl. And now, as we come into this season, you know, Cincinnati now one of the leading teams in the conference, and they are coming off a resounding 42-13 victory over SMU, a team that defeated Memphis a couple of weeks ago. So, how does that look as we head towards kickoff on Saturday?
Well, let me just wave the flag of the American Athletic Conference a minute, Jeff. The very fact that Cincinnati is ranked 7th in the country here in October, coming off a season in which, as you mentioned, Memphis got to the Cotton Bowl. You know, the American, as far as the Group of Five is concerned, has really become that Power Six league. And you know, you still got an SMU team that took it on the chin against Cincinnati, but they're still in the rankings. If Memphis were able to knock off Cincinnati, you'd be looking at 3 teams in the top 25. It's a good time to be following this conference, honestly. And you mentioned the 2 games that the Bearcats and Tigers played at the end of last season. They were both terrific football games. Went down to the last minutes of the fourth quarter, and the Tigers, playing here in the Liberty Bowl, won both of them and won the AAC title. But it could have gone the other direction. Now you've got Desmond Ritter in command behind center with the Bearcats, and a defense that is playing a different kind of game than the Tigers are playing. It's going to be a super test for Memphis, particularly on the road, come this Saturday.
Yeah, you look at the fact that Desmond Ritter had a huge game running the football, and again, you mentioned the Bearcats defense. Yeah, they are the fact that they held an SMU high flying offense to just 13 points and not a lot of yards really says a lot.
They've only given them 50 points in 4 games. That's just that doesn't equate around Memphis, Tennessee anymore. Over the last 6, 7, 8 years, the Tigers have broken some scoreboards with their offense, but they've also allowed a lot of points. I think one of the keys to watch come Saturday afternoon will be, can the Tigers can they score 30 against this Cincinnati defense? Because I don't see Memphis winning a low-scoring affair, a back-and-forth defensive affair. They've got too many holes on the defensive side of the ball. They've got some injuries they're trying to work out, some kinks. They were able to force turnovers against Temple, and that made the difference. Rodney Owens came up big with a couple of interceptions. He's a safety starring in the Tigers secondary. If the Tigers can force some turnovers, and steal some possessions from Mr. Ritter and his friends, they might pull off an upset.
Yeah, and of course you look at since you guys dropped that game to SMU, which was the last-second field goal after coming back from a big deficit. You had the big come-from-behind victory over UCF by a single point. At least, got some momentum, maybe a little bit of fits and spurts with the Temple game, but, the name of the game is getting the W, which you checked off the list. Gotta like at least the momentum they've got going.
Yeah, the Tigers are a different offense this year, Jeff. They've got a very familiar face at quarterback in Brady White. The coach is new, Ryan Silverfield, but he was the right-hand man to Mike Norvell for 4 years, so that's somewhat familiar. But they're down Kenny Gainwell and DeMonte Coxey, a running back and wide receiver, respectively, that each gained 1,000 yards last year, who have opted out this season amid all the coronavirus turmoil. So you got new names, guys like Calvin Austin and Taj Washington among the receivers catching White's passes. Sean Dykes is a terrific tight end who missed most of last year with an injury, and he's a threat even downfield. And a new running back in Drake Clark, who's on pace for 1,000 yards himself this year, even splitting some time with another tailback by the name of Kylan Watkins. So we are learning about Memphis's recruiting depth this year, Jeff, that there's more than what you see at the 1 or even 2 spots on the depth chart. And Silverfield has been able to plug in guys that are playmakers. And it's been a lot of fun to watch when the Tigers have the ball. It's when the opponent takes possession that, as we saw against SMU and even against UCF, they put up 49 points. It gets a little dicey.
Yeah. And talk about that UCF game a little bit, because that was kind of the proverbial monkey on the back that they finally have exercised, so to speak. Can you talk about what that meant to the Memphis football team?
Yeah, to say the least. For those who aren't familiar, Memphis had lost 13 straight games to UCF. Their only win had come 30 years ago when UCF was not even a Division 1A opponent at the time. So this was it was a rivalry with quote marks, with air quotes, that Memphis would like to proclaim, but it really wasn't much of one, with the Knights prevailing. And then to be down 35-14 with 20 minutes left in the football game, it was the kind of thing you change your channel on if you're viewing at home. But the Tigers, particularly White, who has been a resourceful quarterback and now is his third season, they showed a lot of backbone and pulled it off. Thanks to a shanked field goal at the end. They benefited from that in 2019 too. You got to be lucky as well as good, and that's part of the mix. So
with this Memphis-Cincinnati rivalry, it goes back quite a ways, and a lot of nip and tuck games along the way. This is going to be some pretty good stuff. It's a terrific rivalry, and it goes way back. It goes well beyond the American. I think this is the 37th meeting between the Bearcats and Tigers. It's somewhat regional, if you want to call Southern Ohio part of kind of dipping into the Mid-South. It's a huge game for Memphis in historical terms, Jeff. That the Tigers have only beaten a top 10 team 3 times in their history. They've been playing football more than 100 years. They had an upset in 1965, another in 1975. And they beat Peyton Manning and the Tennessee Vols in 1996. But it's been 24 years since this program has taken down a top 10 team. So should Memphis pull off the upset Saturday, it's a historical marker in a very bizarre and disjointed season. Yeah, and you mentioned that 96 game. I happened to have been living in Knoxville, Tennessee at that particular time during the Peyton Manning years. And, boy, you could have just cast a big black cloud over Knoxville that day. I imagine. I was born in Knoxville, Jeff. I got some orange in my veins. Haven't lived there in many, many years. But I know that upset was more earth-shaking than those living outside the state of Tennessee could understand. Because it was not a good Memphis team that won that ball game. This is the program we're evaluating and discussing now is an entirely different
category. But yeah, that was a seismic upset, and with a legendary player on, calling the shots for the Vols. It was something else. I was in the stadium that night and won't forget it. Yeah,
that's pretty impressive stuff. And then, of course, you had mentioned the flag waving for the American. And this in essence, this week is a de facto playoff game, because Memphis would suffer if they suffer a second loss in conference, that's going to be tough ground to make up. But they get a win and they're right back in the mix.
Yeah, you use the right word, Jeff. It is this whole season feels like a virtual playoff. You've now got, I believe it's 6 AAC teams with either no losses or one. Only 2 of those are going to get to play for the championship. So you do the math on it. The 3 teams with 1 loss, Navy, Memphis, and SMU, they can't afford a second loss. Not with the numbers shaping up as they are. And this essentially being the midpoint in the season, it'll be Game 5 for the Tigers, and they only have 5 left. It's a huge game, and back to we grew up with college football selling itself on every game matters. Well, that's the truth in 2020 more than ever, and particularly when you got 2 programs that are familiar with each other and don't like each other very much. Saturday should be explosive.
Yeah, and a high noon kickoff on ESPN to boot, so that's going to draw some interest, I think, from folks from outside of the AAC as well.
It's happening more and more. I was astonished to see, going all the way back to the opener when the Tigers opened up against Arkansas State on ESPN in prime time, the first Saturday of the season. The Americans getting attention and spotlight, unlike Memphis fans are used to seeing. I can't speak for Cincinnati, football folks, but it's nice to see. It's healthy. I think variety is the spice of life, and college football is getting a taste of it from some of their non-power schools, and 2 of them are going to be facing each other come Saturday afternoon. Yeah,
that'll be good stuff, and just think, in about another month, college basketball will be on the horizon too, right, with everything that's going on. College basketball is going to have a lot of adjusting. We're seeing a lot of the preseason tournaments start to fold up because of the protocols that can't be agreed upon. Has Memphis been affected by any of that?
I don't believe so, Jeff. They intend to play in a tournament. I think it's in South Dakota to open their season in late November. I've got to do some basketball homework still. I'm knee deep in football numbers these days. But the schedule's been reduced. But Penny and his crew are they've got their sneakers on over at the Lori Walton Center here, and after all we've been through over the last 9 months, the idea of there being college basketball again, because it was. You remember, it was college basketball. We just, shut off, with a felt like a light switch right before the conference tourneys were starting back in March. It'll be nice to see that resume, and maybe that'll give a sense of normalcy that we're all grasping for as this year nears its end.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, when that switch went off in March. And all of the sports world shut down, but in particular, like, I'm a big March Madness guy, and the thought of losing that was just devastating.
Right. Oh, yeah. And it changed the entire. Well, it changed the month of March forever. We'll remember the March without Madness. That's for sure. And don't it hurt the coffers of every one of these programs we analyze and evaluate. There's so much money tied into that tournament, and if I were betting on anything in 2021, there will be some form of Madness televised. Who knows what form it'll take. Let's hope it'll be with fans in arenas. But that was. It seems like a lifetime ago, Jeff. It was only, I guess it was 7 months ago. It just seems like so long ago that I was in an arena with 15,000 people sitting a few feet from Penny Hardaway. It's different world.
Yeah, it most definitely is. Well, big doings again this Saturday, Memphis, Cincinnati, and a big conference matchup. What's your final thoughts on the game? How do you think it plays out?
Well, I think going back to turnovers, I think Memphis has to get the ball out of Ritter's hands. That time of possession stat is going to be an important one to watch, I think, in this game, because the Bearcats have shown that they can score. Can the Tigers, gain a possession or two? I think that's the only way they're going to prevail. It's going to be a steep climb for Memphis.
All right. Well, Frank, as always, we do appreciate your time and talking about the Memphis Tigers. And please, feel free to promote social media. Anything coming up in your magazine you want to talk about, please, the floor is yours.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Not sports related, we have something significant in Memphis Magazine. If you got Led Zeppelin fans among your listeners, Zeppelin produced their third album in 1970 right here in Memphis, and we've done a story that digs deeply into what went into bringing Robert Plant and Jimmy Page and that legendary band here to the Mid-South. So you're going to be able to subscribe or find that online in the near future, and it'll be special.
Yeah, that is good stuff. We definitely have rock and roll fans in our audience. So that
I thought you might. Yeah, I thought you might, particularly when it's Zeppelin.
Yeah, outstanding. All right, Frank, thanks again. We appreciate your time.
Take care, Jeff. Thank you.
Memphis at Cincinnati, a high noon kickoff on ESPN. The Tigers lead the all-time series 23-15, and they won the last meeting in the AAC Championship at the end of 2019 season by a 29-24 score. Back with the latest rankings and the players of the week right after this.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app for Nightline at Night. Brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Nightline at Night, every Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Nightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this. We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys? My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Nightline Sports Network.
In the latest rankings, Cincinnati comes in at number 7 in both polls. SMU, after losing to the Bearcats, drops to number 22 in the AP and number 23 in the coaches poll. Conference Players of the Week, the Offensive Player of the Week is Desmond Ridder of Cincinnati. He was also chosen as the Walter Camp National Offensive Player of the Week as well in their 42-13 win against then number 16 SMU. He accounted for 305 yards of offense and 4 touchdowns, 179 rushing on the ground with 3 scores, 13 of 21 for 126 through the air and a touchdown. And he capped his performance with a 91-yard touchdown run, which ranks as the 5th longest rushing play in AAC history and the 2nd longest by a quarterback. The Defensive Player of the Week, Zaven Collins of Tulsa. The junior linebacker led a defense that held USF to 13 points and 305 total yards. He finished with 6 tackles, including 5 solo stops to go with a forced fumble and a 37-yard interception return for a touchdown. His forced fumble ended a USF drive at the Tulsa 6-yard line just before the half, and his interception provided the back-breaking score in the Golden Hurricane victory. And the Special Teams Player of the Week is Dalton Witherspoon. The kicker from Houston scored 13 points, going 3 of 3 on field goal attempts, 4 and 4 on point afters, as Houston downed Navy. Witherspoon accounted for 10 of Houston's 16 first-half points, including a 53-yard field goal that tied the Cougars' program record. Witherspoon also was successful from 33 and 45 yards, while his 4 extra points extended his streak to 125 consecutive made PATs. And that will do it for this week's edition of the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.